All right, guys. Good afternoon. Thanks for coming. Recap the game from the other night. MVPs of the game. Offensively, I thought a couple good individual performances there. Tucker Gleason, I thought, was really solid in the run game. Helped us get going. Counted for 3 touchdowns in the game. Provided a big spark early on and a couple really key runs in the game. Terrell Crosby is our MVP on special teams. His best game here as a Rocket. Continues to improve and going to need more out of him as we continue to grow here in the kicking game and offensively. And defensively, the point leader for the week and MVP over there was Anthony Dunn, his best game as a Rocket as well. So lots of great individual performances. Guys did some really, really good things and some things to build off of from that tape, good and bad, and as we progress. But turn our focus here to Ohio, really good team, very well coached. Tim has done as good a job as anybody in our league, in my opinion. They lost a lot of players in the offseason, and they're at the top of the league standings right now. And it's done a really good job, him and his staff, getting that team ready to play each and every week. And it's a good team, led by a good quarterback and very sound on defense. Did a great job taking the football away in last night's game, and really complimented one another in all 3 phases. To try to get a good team win, and they were able to do that, and it will be a great test for us next Wednesday night. So that being said, I'll take your questions.
You mentioned Anthony Dunn. He hasn't played a ton of snaps this season, but he's been pretty impactful when he's been on the field. I guess, what do you kind of see in him in this progression? And what was kind of the process of him going in the portal and you guys find him?
Well, I think there's an ongoing process for any young person that comes into your program, and maturity, growing to a new environment, leaving your comfort zone and wherever you're at before, and trying to get a fresh start, and learning how we do things here. Sometimes that's easier said than done for a lot of guys. So, but he continues to mature in a lot of ways. Some things he's done a really good job of. He's always been a talented football player. That's why we brought him in, and but very productive, very disruptive out there. I thought they tried to block him one time with a tight end, and he was strong enough to rip and throw that guy around and go get the quarterback. And then one of the other sacks is the tackles on him. He's quick enough to get around him. So he's got a good skill set, good talent. But really trying to learn our system and how that works, and trying to get him to fit in that way. And like a lot of transfers, sometimes that takes a little bit of time.
We talked about Jaden Dotton after the game. You mentioned Tucker last year came to you. Obviously, you're probably not going to have your backup quarterback play tight end. But what is kind of the process? When a player comes to you and talks about a position change, how do you decide whether you might do it or might not?
Well, I think number one, he's got to be convicted in doing it. 2, we have to see that as a pathway for him to have success. Connor Jones is an example of that on offense. He switched over from linebacker, and he's playing a significant role here now in 12 personnel in some of our packages as a tight end / fullback type body. We've done that with Devin Rogers a few years ago at center, coming over from the D-line, and that was just out of necessity due to back-to-back days in preseason camp, losing 2 starters on the offensive line. So you have a limited roster size. This isn't like coaching at Mount Union where I grew up coaching at, where there's 220 guys on the roster and you get to pick just next man up type of thing. There is that kind of mentality at every position, but sometimes there's a veteran player that can help you, and I think those conversations to put your team in position to win that's a responsibility for staff to continue to look into that.
And then looking forward to Ohio, you mentioned about their offseason. They have a staggering amount of players leave in the offseason. How kind of impressive has it been to see them atop the standings at this point of the season? Yeah,
I think like I said, it's a testament to a good staff and the culture of their team to, the guys that stayed around there to rally together and play really, really good football. So, our league has a few examples of that. They're one of those. We're one of those. You lose some really good talented players, and, you rely on really good recruiting, but, just being talented and, hey, I'm the next guy to go in doesn't necessarily always lead to championship type play. So you have to have a great buy-in value from everybody in those rooms to allow you to develop in a non-threatening environment, and for kids to reach their full potential. And they got a lot of examples of that, just as do we.
Looking at what just Nasir and Avery have done in the past 2 games, is this developmentally where you were always hoping kind of they would get to in the season?
Yeah, they certainly put in the work. You can. My office sits on the edge, the north end of the stadium here. I mean, I can look out my window and see who's really putting in time and energy in days that nobody else is around here. And oftentimes, that those young corners are out there working when nobody else is working. I've often said that there's been great, pictures of what success looks like at that position. And, you could point back to some of the DBs that have been here and played really, really well. Those guys would have seen, Chris McDonald's work ethic. They'd have seen Quinion Mitchell's work ethic. They'd have seen, the safeties that were here the last couple of years, and Zach Ford and, and Nate and all those guys, and Tyson Anderson. Those guys really, I think, put down a blueprint for guys to understand that, that you're not just a great high school player, and then you automatically become a great college player, and then automatically you become a draft pick. I mean, there is a lot of work from point A to point B, and it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to buy in and do it. And sometimes, what you do in the dark doesn't always come to light when you want it to come to light. So for it to come to light on a prime time stage for those guys last couple of weeks, it's been fun to see, and I know there's a lot more in the tank for them too.
Ohio boasts one of the better run defenses. What do you see as like the challenges that they pose, especially as this team has continued to try to spark the run game more?
Yeah, gap sound team, stout in the core, solid on the edges. Going to do a good job playing through your tackles. They're not going to fly up the field and give you mistakes and make mistakes to give you gash run plays. And they're good in the front seven, all the way across. And and I think they, in passing situations, they can cover you well enough to where you really have to earn everything you get on on offense. And I think they've had some staff changes there, changing coordinators, and that's they've done a really good job. And like I said, we're in for a stiff challenge here.
To kind of go off that, do you feel like they kind of should mirror what you guys want to do identity-wise, and if so, does that make it easier or harder to prepare for?
Tell me one more time. Say it again.
Just, do you feel like Ohio kind of mirrors what you guys want to do in terms of identity, in terms of running the ball and things like that, takeaways on defense, and does that make it harder or easier to prepare for?
I mean, I think that everybody wants to take the football away, and everybody wants to protect the ball on offense. I mean, that's kind of the blueprint for success or failure for any team in any game. I think that, like any good coaching staff, they're going to build their team or their offensive scheme around what their quarterback can do and what he does well. He's a damn good runner. He does a really good job of extending plays with his feet, in the passing game. And then they do a lot of design quarterback runs, whether that be, power sweep or speed option or, quarterback draws, that kind of stuff. You've got to really have your eyes in a disciplined spot and play with great technique and do your job. You can't get out of character and jump out of your gap, or there's going to be big plays that are going to happen. You can't, 3rd and 10, you can't just assume everything's going to be a drop back pass and go screaming up the field, because he'll take off and he'll get a 20-yard quarterback draw on you. So they stress your discipline, they stress your eyes, they put you in conflict quite a bit, and they make you play sound football.
Yeah, you mentioned obviously the quarterback run. Does that have a guy like Tucker through practice this week kind of help kind of emulate what he might do?
Well, our guys aren't allowed to hit Tucker, but even though they might want to sometimes. But yeah, I mean, we got other guys, Caleb Osborne and R.J. Johnson, and some of those guys that the younger guys that are working down there, and we'll emphasize that it's not too totally different than from what we do, and so you don't have to jump out of character and put in a new scout team offense for the week to prepare. But yeah, we'll have to use some of our good players to give him some good looks, because he is a really good player.
And on top of obviously a great matchup on Wednesday, obviously it'll be the final home game, obviously in the Glass Bowl this year. Just kind of how does that add to what you guys are looking at?
Yeah, I think that a special moment for our seniors. We don't, this is really senior day in the sense that it's your last game here in the Glass Bowl as a senior. We honor our seniors earlier in the year just because the weather's a little bit more predictable, and the Saturday afternoon crowds are better. But special time for all these guys. It's the last one for them here. You want to make it that to go out the right way and make it a lasting memory. So nobody wants to be that class that didn't get it done in their last game. So yeah, I mean, there's a little extra motivation that way. But I think once the ball gets kicked off, we have the same challenges that are in front of us as we did last week. Got to play a really good team in a unpredictable weather environment on a Tuesday or Wednesday night at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock, whatever time it may be.
Going back to Nasir and Avery, obviously big losses in your secondary from last season, really good players that were gone. How imperative was it for guys to step up at that position, and how different might your season look if they wouldn't?
Well, I think that, from my perspective of it is you lost 2 pros at corner, We lost a third guy that decided to leave and go somewhere else, who was also a good player. Lost 2 safeties that started really 4 years of football here. Tons of reps that these guys could have been getting that didn't get. Kind of the COVID hangover a little bit, right? You know, guys getting extra years of eligibility, and you want those guys back because they're really good, but sometimes it stymies the growth of a young player. You know, so going into the offseason, then it worries you a little bit in the sense of, like, we lost so many guys. We have not had the ability to grow great depth because of being so top heavy. So you go try to get a couple guys in the portal to kind of supplement that. Then you get 2 good ones, and JD and Zeke Blake. And JD, gets hurt and he's out for the year, and we lose Dre, who is also a good player. So these guys have kind of been, those 2 and Zeke have kind of been it, right? Like they're the guys that are out there at all times. So there's nowhere else to turn. So, there's not like, hey, I made a bad play and that's okay. I go take a break and catch my breath here and, talk it out with my coach while somebody else goes in and covers for me. They can't miss. And sometimes that's unfair pressure for players. And, but like I said earlier, they've put the work in, they put the time in, they've earned the opportunity to go play well and do it at a high level. And they really do buy into the preparation. I hope that continues.
And then I know you analyze everything like a coach, 1 game at a time and all that, but with 2 games left in the MAC, it's pretty exciting, all the scenarios that are out there for what can happen. Like, if you kind of put your fan hat on, what do you think of all like the craziness that can happen these final 2 weeks?
Well, I think you said it. I'd analyze everything like a coach, and I pay attention to that, and I'll continue to pay attention to Ohio next Wednesday night.